I didn't think skipping one wedding gift would turn the whole family against me. It started with a group chat. My cousin Rachel was getting married. Destination ceremony, expensive venue, full Pinterest board aesthetic. The kind where the invitation comes with a payment breakdown. Everyone was excited. Aunt Lily shared photos of the dress. Uncle Mark sent a "can't wait for the open bar" meme. Then came the real ask. Group gift idea. $500 each. Fair, right? I didn't reply. Not immediately. I scrolled through the messages and stared at the number. $500, I could have lied. Said I was out of town, that something had come up. But for once, I didn't want to make an excuse. So I said it plainly. I won't be contributing to the group gift this time. That was it. 2 minutes later, the typing bubbles started. Aunt Lily. You okay? That's not like you. Rachel's sister. It's not even about the money. It's about being part of something special. I didn't say anything back. Because explaining myself to people who've never asked me real questions felt like shouting into an empty hallway. Then, my own sister Claire jumped in. Ava's always been a little distant about family stuff. Distant. That word felt sharper than it should have, like a polite way to say cold. No one defended me. Not even my mom. She was in the chat. She saw the comments. She even liked one that said, "Guess not everyone. Values tradition." I left the conversation quietly. No dramatic exit, no speech, just gone. And when I closed the app, I sat there with my phone in my lap. Still. Not sad. Not angry. Just tired. A few hours later, Claire sent me a private message. You're really not helping with the wedding? Wow. Selfish much? I read it. Didn't reply. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask what was going on in my life. Because no one ever really asked. They assumed I was fine, that I had money tucked away, that I was good with savings, and maybe I was. But not for the reasons they thought. I wasn't hoarding money for myself. I was holding things together, silently, for someone they had all forgotten, someone none of them even mentioned in that chat. Grandma. She lived 10 minutes. From me. Alone. In the same 2-bedroom brick house she'd had since before I was born. Her garden was overgrown now, her steps uneven, the mailbox sometimes full for days. I'd been checking on her weekly for nearly a year. At first it was just groceries, then driving her to appointments, then helping with the heating bill. And then one afternoon, I found a stack of overdue notices on her kitchen counter, all unopened. Medications, power bills, property tax. I didn't panic. I didn't lecture her. I just paid them little by little. When the refrigerator broke, I bought a new one. When the nurse stopped coming, I hired a part-timer. When she mentioned casually that she hadn't had a warm bath in a week, I paid for the water heater repair myself. No one knew. Not because I was hiding it, but because no one ever asked. The day after the group chat, I stopped by Grandma's place. She was sitting by the window with her tea, wrapped in the same faded green shawl she always wore in early spring. She looked at me and smiled. Something on your mind, love? I shook my head and sat beside her. Just needed a break from noise. She nodded, understanding more than I said out loud. You remind me of your grandfather. Quiet, but steady. I didn't cry, but my chest tightened, because in a family that had learned to speak in celebrations, in selfies, in loud group chats full of emojis, I had become the silence, and that silence had weight. It paid bills, it carried groceries, it answered calls at 3 a.m. when Grandma's breathing felt wrong. But to them, silence looked like selfishness, and I realized they didn't hate me. They just didn't know me. Because they'd never tried. I never made a list. Not until much later. Because when you're helping someone you love, it doesn't feel like a transaction. It feels like breathing, automatic, unnoticed, necessary. But if I had written it all down, it would have started with a pharmacy receipt. $42.78 for heart medication Grandma forgot to reorder. She'd called me in a panic, her voice shaking. "Don't worry, Ava. I'll figure it out." She didn't need to. I drove across town, picked it up, and brought it to her door before dinner. That was the first time. Then came groceries, then the heating bill, then the power, then the water heater. By the third month, I was transferring money straight into her account every first of the month, enough to make sure no utilities got cut off. She never asked me to. She always said, "You don't have to do this, love." And every time I smiled and said, "I know." But the truth was, I did feel like I had to, because no one else was. My cousin Rachel, the one with the destination wedding, hadn't visited Grandma in over a year. Claire, my own sister, sent her a birthday text once. My uncles sent flowers on Christmas with their names misspelled on the card. No one remembered her doctor appointments. No one knew about the fall she took last winter. No one saw how thin she looked that spring, when she could barely hold her teacup without her hand trembling. But I did. And I didn't do it for credit. I did it because I couldn't bear the idea of her going through life, or worse, toward the end of it, feeling like a burden. She wasn't a burden. She was the only person in the family who'd ever truly seen me. When I got laid off years ago and didn't tell anyone, Grandma was the one who noticed I stopped wearing makeup and started skipping meals. She handed me a $50 bill folded inside a cookie tin and said, "Even strong girls need help sometimes." That line stayed with me. It still does. So when she began needing me more, I didn't hesitate. I shifted my budget, canceled weekend plans, paused my camera upgrade, even sold a few pieces of my old equipment when she needed an unexpected dental procedure. I didn't complain. I didn't tell anyone because I knew what would happen if I did. They'd roll their eyes, say she was getting forgetful, or worse, they'd say I was being dramatic. So I said nothing, and paid the bills, and checked her medications, and drove her to clinics, and helped her clean the parts of the house she was too tired to reach. One afternoon, as we sat folding laundry together, she said something that stopped me cold. "When I go, they'll all come running, not for me, but for what I leave behind." I looked at her, unsure what to say. She just smiled, folded a towel, and added, "But don't worry, sweetheart. I see who's really here." I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to, because I knew, and so did she, that I wasn't just saving money. I was saving her dignity, her comfort, her peace. While everyone else was saving for outfits, vacations, and matching bridesmaid robes, I was saving the heat on in winter. The fridge full, the pain managed, and they called me selfish. That week, while the group chat buzzed with talk about Rachel's pre-wedding photo shoot and custom flower wall, I drove Grandma to the clinic for her routine scan. She didn't say much, just held my hand tightly in the waiting room, and for a moment I thought, if they knew what I was doing right now, would it even matter to them? I already knew the answer. No, not really, because they didn't ask. Not once. Not how I was, not how she was, not what the silence meant. That silence became my answer, and what they didn't know was about to change everything. The wedding weekend was exactly what I expected: over-decorated, overexposed, overcompensating, gold-trimmed invitations, personalized champagne flutes, a hashtag printed on napkins, "Yar Rachel's big day," like it was a product launch, not a marriage. I arrived late, on purpose, not late enough to miss the family photos, though. "Ava," my aunt called from across the venue. "We weren't sure you were coming." That wasn't a compliment. It was a message. Everyone else was already dressed to match: navy blue theme, silver accents, full makeup. I wore a plain black dress and a muted scarf Grandma had given me last year. Claire walked up, heels clicking too loudly on the marble. You didn't wear the group earrings? I raised an eyebrow. There were group earrings? She rolled her eyes, muttering something about how I was always too cool for effort. I didn't reply. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll admit that. Strings played softly. Rachel cried on cue. The groom laughed at the vows. Everyone clapped. But I couldn't stop thinking about the phone call I got from Grandma that morning. Her voice was faint. Don't worry about me, darling. Just enjoy yourself. Tell Rachel I wish her happiness. She hadn't been well enough to attend, and no one noticed. No one asked why her chair was empty. No one paused to say, "Hey, should we FaceTime her?" They were too busy posing. At the reception, I sat at the end of the table, a seat they always give to the quiet ones, farthest from the dance floor and the cameras. Everyone else laughed over champagne, clinked glasses, shouted inside jokes. Across the room, I sipped water. Aunt Lily leaned over during dessert, smiling too tightly. So what's Ava saving up for anyway? Must be something big. You skipped the group gift after all. I looked at her. Not with anger, just with distance. Rent, I said. Bills. She laughed awkwardly. Oh, right, the serious one. I nodded. Because yes, I was serious. About showing up. Serious about caring. Serious about the things they'd forgotten mattered. Later that night, while they danced under fairy lights and shouted song lyrics they barely knew, I slipped out. No one stopped me. I got in my car, pulled out of the valet circle and turned off the music completely. The silence felt like a deep exhale. Before going home, I made one stop, the pharmacy, picked up a refill. Grandma couldn't get to that day, then dropped it off at her doorstep with a note. See you tomorrow. Get some rest. A. It was almost midnight when I got home. I checked my bank app before bed. Another hospital copay had gone through. $243, $11, no notifications from the wedding group, no messages from Claire. Just that empty, familiar silence. And for the first time, I started to wonder, when Grandma's gone, who will even remember I was here? 3 days after the wedding, I went to visit Grandma. She was sitting on the porch in her usual chair, her green shawl wrapped around her shoulders, even though it was warm out. A glass of lukewarm tea sat untouched beside her. She looked thinner. You didn't stay long at the wedding, she said, her voice low but playful. I sat beside her. I stayed long enough. She smiled faintly. That kind of event exhausts me even from afar. I can only imagine how you felt being in it. I didn't reply. She already knew. We sat quietly for a while. A breeze passed between us, stirring the wind chimes above the porch light. It was peaceful, but there was a heaviness in the air, one we both felt. Finally, she spoke again. I need to tell you something. I looked over, the way you do when someone says that and your gut already knows it's serious. I've changed the will. My heart dropped. She kept her eyes on the horizon as she continued. I left everything to you, the house, the savings, what little insurance is left. I stared at her, stunned. Grandma! I didn't help you for that. She turned to me now, her gaze sharper than her voice. I know that. That's why it has to be you. She reached beside her, picked up a small folded envelope, and pressed it into my hand. They'll be angry. They'll say it's unfair. They'll say it's wrong. But you and I both know what's really unfair. I held the envelope in my lap. Didn't open it. This isn't about money, she added. It's about truth, about legacy, about doing right by the one person who's shown up again and again, even when no one was watching. I didn't know what to say. So I said, the only thing I could. Thank you. That was the last full conversation we ever had. The next day, She was too tired to speak. By the end of the week, she was gone. No long hospital stay. No dramatic final words. Just a soft, quiet goodbye, exactly how she lived. The funeral was simple. Family showed up, faces long and voices low. They cried, hugged each other, took photos at the gravesite, for memories, I guess. No one mentioned that she hadn't been invited to the wedding. No one asked who paid for her hospice nurse, or her prescriptions, or her food. They just talked about how kind she was, and how they'd miss her laugh. I stood there, watching it all like I was underwater, present, but floating just beneath the surface. Then Claire hugged me and whispered, "She always loved you. You know that, right?" I nodded. Because yes, I did know that, and so would they. Very soon, 2 weeks after the funeral, I got the call from the lawyer. "Your grandmother appointed you as the primary contact. We'd like to schedule a reading of the will." I said yes, set the date, told no one. The morning of the meeting, I woke up earlier than usual, got dressed slowly. I pulled Grandma's green shawl from my closet and folded it into my bag. Not to wear, just to keep close. At the lawyer's office, the lobby was already crowded when I arrived. Claire was there, full glam, Rachel and her husband whispering to each other, Aunt Lily fixing her necklace, my uncle pacing by the window like he was late for a meeting. They were all buzzing with quiet assumptions. She probably split it evenly. The house will go to your mom, obviously. I'm sure there's something for everyone. She was always fair. No one looked at me. Not until the lawyer called us in. We filed into a long wood-paneled room. Everyone took their seats, phones buzzing in silent mode on the table. I sat at the far end, just like at the wedding. The lawyer, an older man in wire-rimmed glasses, greeted us politely, then opened the thick folder. Denise Baker's last will and testament. He started with the formalities, her wishes, for the funeral. A brief mention of a scholarship she had donated to in her husband's name. Then came the part everyone had been waiting for. As for my estate, the house, savings, remaining assets, I leave all possessions and authority to my granddaughter Ava. The room froze. You could hear someone's breath catch. A fork clinked lightly against a mug. Rachel's mouth opened but said nothing. Claire blinked at me across the table, confused, then embarrassed. Aunt Lily let out a half laugh. There must be some mistake. The lawyer paused. There's an additional note. He unfolded a smaller paper and began reading aloud. Grandma's handwriting, her voice coming alive again in the silence. To my family, I know this may come as a shock, but the truth often does. Ava has been more than a granddaughter to me. She has been my caretaker, my advocate, and my friend. While others were absent, she was present. While others were busy, she made time. This is not a punishment. This is recognition. She didn't ask for this, and that's exactly why it belongs to her. No one spoke. My fingers tightened around the envelope I'd kept in my purse, the one Grandma had given me. I stood up quietly and handed it to the lawyer. She asked me to bring this. He opened it, read it silently, then nodded. This confirms everything written above. Claire finally broke the silence. You're kidding me. Grandma wouldn't do this. She would never cut us out. I looked at her. She didn't cut you out. You just weren't ever there to begin with. Claire's eyes narrowed. You think you're better than us because you played nursemaid for a few months? Aunt Lily snapped. This is ridiculous. She was old. She probably didn't know what she was signing. The lawyer raised his hand calmly. Everything was documented. Her mind was clear. There are video recordings if necessary. Rachel shook, her head, lips pursed. My uncle leaned forward, voice low and bitter. You manipulated her. I didn't even flinch. I delivered her groceries. sat with her through appointments, paid her heating bill last winter. If you think that's manipulation, maybe ask yourself why you weren't doing it. No one replied. I stood, gathering my things. The room was still quiet, but now it was heavy. Before I walked out, I looked back once, not at them, but at the lawyer. Thank you. Then I turned to the rest of the room. You called me selfish for saving money. You never asked what I was saving. Turns out, I was saving a legacy. Not for you, for her. And I left. I could feel their eyes on my back the entire way out, but none of them followed. Because what do you say when the person you erased ends up holding the only truth that mattered? It didn't take long. By the time I got home that night, the messages had already started. Not to me. To the world. Claire's. Facebook status read, "Some people only show up when there's something to gain. Funny how caring looks like collecting everything for yourself. Grandma deserved better." 58 likes, 4 crying emojis, and 1 comment from Aunt Lily that said, "What a shame. Money changes people." I didn't react. Didn't comment. Didn't even screenshot. Not yet. By morning, Uncle Dan had posted too. Grandma always saw the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. Some truths come out too late. Their messages weren't about grief. They were about guilt, wrapped in performance. Because none of them were angry about what they lost. They were angry they got exposed. 2 days later, a friend sent me a screenshot. Rachel had posted a story on Instagram, a black background with white text, dramatic and vague. People show their true colors when a will is read. Hope you sleep well tonight. I did. I didn't respond. Not yet. But I could feel the narrative shifting. And not in my favor. To them, I was the villain now. The manipulator. The cold one. Because when guilt doesn't work, they try shame. And when shame doesn't work, they wait for you to break. But I wasn't breaking. Not this time. That weekend, I sat down with my laptop, opened a blank Facebook post, took a deep breath, and wrote, "My family is telling one side of the story. Here's mine." I attached a photo of the hospital bills I paid over the past 14 months, a copy of the heating repair invoice in my name. Screenshots of the weekly grocery transfers, a photo of Grandma and me holding hands at her last appointment, and finally, the letter she wrote me, signed in her handwriting, the same one they all knew. I never asked for recognition. I never asked for thanks. I just showed up, again and again. While others planned photo shoots, I was in waiting rooms. While others shared hashtags, I shared quiet afternoons with the only woman who ever truly saw me. She left everything to me. Not because I asked, but because I was there. My silence wasn't selfishness. It was sacrifice. And now, it's peace. I posted it. No hashtags, no dramatic filter, just truth. And then, I logged off. By Monday morning, my inbox was full. Old friends, acquaintances, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. I had no idea. This was beautiful. Thank you for saying what so many of us feel. You don't owe anyone anything. By the end of the day, Claire had deleted her post. Aunt Lily changed her profile picture to a flower, the digital version of pretending nothing happened. Rachel locked her account. The house wasn't mentioned again. Neither was the will, and just like that, the noise stopped, not because I shouted louder, but because I told the truth once, clearly, and without shame. That night I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the same spot Grandma used to love. The wind was soft. The house was quiet. My heart, for the first time in years, felt still. They had lost the battle they started, not to revenge, but to facts, and to the one thing they'd never understand. You don't need to scream to win. Sometimes you just have to stop hiding. I didn't hear from them again. Not for weeks. Not even after the post. Not even when they saw that people believed me. There were no calls, no emails, no attempts at apologies. Just silence. But this time, it didn't feel like rejection. It felt like a choice. Mine. I started making little changes around Grandma's house. I repainted the front door, dark green, just like her favorite shawl. Cleaned out the upstairs closet where she kept old linens and memories. Found a box of postcards she'd collected from every trip she'd taken before her knees gave out. I pinned them on the wall above my desk. Then, one afternoon, I walked past the dusty bookshelf in the hallway and noticed something tucked between two cookbooks. A small photo album. Inside were pictures of us. Just me and her. No filters. No hashtags. No group shots. Just us. At the farmer's market. At the clinic. On the porch. Drinking tea. And in each photo, she looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Because for her, I was. I started sleeping through the night again. I signed up for a watercolor class on Wednesdays, took morning walks without my phone. Learned how to make her favorite soup from scratch, not because anyone asked for it, but because it made the house smell like her. I didn't touch the savings, didn't sell the house, didn't upgrade anything right away. Because I wasn't living for next. I was living for now. Finally. A few weeks later, I ran into a neighbor, Mrs. Callahan. She stopped me at the gate, holding a paper grocery bag. I just wanted to say, "Your grandmother was proud of you." She told me once, "My Ava doesn't need a crowd to stand tall." I smiled. She told me that too. I spent Saturday mornings repainting the back fence, Sunday afternoons journaling in her garden, started uploading a few pictures from my walks online, not for likes, but just to share something gentle. And slowly, I realized, peace wasn't selfish. It was a boundary, one I had needed for far too long. Then, one evening, Claire texted me. First time in months. Just wanted to say, "You really surprised us. I hope you're doing okay." No apology. No real acknowledgement. Just a half step. I stared at the screen, thought about Grandma's voice. Sometimes silence is the only answer they deserve. I typed back, "I'm doing well. Hope you are too." And left it at that because this wasn't about a fight. It was about a finish. I've learned something no inheritance could ever teach. Family isn't about shared blood. It's about shared effort, shared compassion, shared presence. And if they can't give that, then their opinion of me doesn't matter. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone I recognize. Not the girl who kept saying yes. Not the one who bent to keep everyone else standing, but someone who stood up for herself. Finally, and never sat back down. These days, I wake up early, just like Grandma used to. Water the garden, feed the birds, brew tea in her favorite mug. Not because I owe her, not because I owe anyone, but because I finally understand. Loyalty without appreciation is a prison. And walking away from that isn't betrayal, it's freedom. What do you think? Was Ava justified? Would you have done the same? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about quiet strength, truth, and choosing yourself.